Okay, we are going to be talking about the verb tense system in English. There are times and aspects that you need to know for the verb tense system. The times are present, past, and future. They give the relationship between the action and now. Present, past, and future. Then you have the aspects. There are 4 aspects in English. And the aspects really tell you what the focus of the action is. What part of the action are you focused on, or how are you looking at the action? So first we have the simple aspect. And the simple aspect looks at an action as an entire whole. That's the important point to remember about simple forms. You're looking at an entire or completed or whole activity. So in the simple present, I teach grammar. This is a very general statement. It includes past, present, and future. It's looking at an action in its entirety. In the past, simple past, I taught grammar this morning. The whole action is what I'm looking at. And in the future, I will teach grammar tomorrow. Again, looking at the whole action that will happen tomorrow. With the progressive aspect, this gives the idea that an action is unfinished. It is continuing. You are looking at the action in progress. You are focusing on a middle point of the action, not the complete action. So the present progressive, I am teaching grammar on this video. The focus here is on the action unfinished right now. In the past, I was teaching grammar when I tripped and fell. It's very common to use the past progressive with the simple past when you want to explain that one action was in progress when something else happened at the same time or interrupted it. So this was an unfinished, progressing action at that time. In the future, I will be teaching grammar for the rest of my life. Very exciting. This focus here is on the continuation of this action. Not looking at it as a whole, but looking at the continuing, unfinished idea of it. Then we have the perfect aspect. The idea of the perfect, you basically want to remember the idea of before a time. If it is present perfect, it is focused before now. So I say I have taught grammar for over 20 years. We're focusing on what is before now. It's different than the simple past because this focuses on one completed activity in the past at a certain defined time. This one may be talking about an action from the past that continues until now, or something that occurred in the past but we don't give any specified time. The idea here is only that it was before now. Another point in time is not important here. We want to talk about 2 different times in the past if you are going to use the past perfect. The past perfect is when you are already defining a time in the past and you want to go before that time. So You are focusing on the idea of before, but it's not before now. It is before another defined time in the past. So we have a defined time in the past. When I started making grammar videos, this is a defined moment. I don't need it to be a certain time given by the watch or by the calendar. It's just giving a time that is certain. It's not any time. It is a certain time. Then I want to say what was before this point. If I go before this point, I use the past perfect. I had already taught numerous grammar classes when I started making grammar videos. So when this time happened, this was in the past from this time. Then we have the future perfect. Now we are looking at a specific point in time in the future and saying what is before that time. By the time I retire, I will have taught almost every grammar point in English. This is a defined future time, and I want to say what is before that time. I will have taught almost every grammar point. This is commonly used to talk about accomplishments, how much you will have done, or how many things are finished at a certain time. So it's often used for accomplishments. Now, the last one is the perfect progressive. And what does this do? This one combines these two ideas. The perfect meaning before a time, and the progressive meaning unfinished. So, present perfect progressive, your focus is on the present. It's now. But it says this action started before now and is not finished now. So I have been teaching grammar for over 20 years. It started before now and it is not finished now. We're looking at two different aspects of this action. I chose the same sentence here with different verb tenses to show that sometimes there is very, very little difference between using the present perfect and the present perfect progressive. However, sometimes it does make a difference. And let me just explain that it might make a difference sometimes if you use the present perfect, that you would be focusing on the result of an action, where instead, if you use the present perfect progressive, you may be focusing on the activity of it. Activity, result. Let me give you an example. I see somebody that I haven't seen for a really long time, and they say, Jeanie, I haven't seen you for so long. What have you been up to? What have you been doing? I say, oh, I've been teaching English for a long time, and especially I love grammar. I've been teaching grammar for over 20 years. Which one did I choose? I chose this one because I was focusing on the activity, what I was doing for 20 years. A different time, a student might say to me, well, how do I know that you understand grammar? How do I know that I should trust you? I say, well, I think you can trust me because I know quite a bit about English grammar. I've taught English grammar for over 20 years. Now I chose this one because I want to focus on the result. I want to focus on my knowledge of English grammar from this teaching. I'm not focusing on the action, but on the result. So, just one point to keep in mind. The past perfect progressive, again, you need 2 past times. You need 1 time in the past, and then you want to go before that time and say that the action is not finished at that time. What time are we looking at? We are looking at when I started making videos. This is my point in time, my past point. I want to say that something started before this and was not finished at this time. So I had already been teaching grammar. This started before and was not finished when I started making videos. Something to notice also between the perfect and the perfect progressive is that if you are talking about an action that happens many different times, not one continuing action, but something that happens a number of times, you want to use the perfect, not the perfect progressive. Because the perfect just says that it happened before now, or before the past, or before the future time, and it's okay if it's many separate times. If you are using a length of time, for a long time, and you are describing an action that just continues, one time, one action continuing, then you will probably use the perfect progressive, whether it's present or past or future. So here I had already been teaching English grammar for a long time. So this is also a difference. Just like here, you're focusing on result and focusing on activity. Here, you want to remember number of times or length of time. General differences between the perfect and the perfect progressive. And then here we have the future perfect progressive. At 5 o'clock, I'm going to need a break because I will have been teaching grammar for 3 hours straight, not no break. So we are looking at a future point in time. Here I'm specifying the actual time, and I want to say what started before this time and was not finished at this time. Started before and not finished teaching grammar. Length of time, duration that I'm using here. Here, separate points. You'll notice that the perfect uses the have auxiliary verb. Here, here, and here. The progressive uses the be verb and ing, am-ing, was-ing, will be-ing. The perfect progressive combines the two. Here is the perfect, here is the progressive. Here is the perfect, here is the progressive. Here is the perfect, here is the progressive. As you practice more, your eyes should be communicating with your brain, your ears with your brain with your mouth, to start connecting these ideas. When you hear or read have, has, had, plus a verb, you get the idea before a time. When you hear or see am, are, is, was, were, be, ing, you get that idea right away. Not finished, continuing. These are the important points that you want to remember with the verb tense system in English.